The Caribbean is now the stage for a high-stakes standoff between the United States and Venezuela. Years of strained relations have erupted into a crisis with global implications. Energy markets, alliances, and millions of lives hang in the balance. At the heart of the conflict is a power struggle over Venezuela's future. The US and its allies refuse to recognize Nicolas Maduro, imposing sanctions to force change. Maduro, backed by Russia and China, clings to power, deepening Venezuela's humanitarian crisis. A recent military incident has pushed the situation to a dangerous new level. Latin American countries are divided. Colombia and Brazil side with the US, while others urge restraint. Russia and China's involvement turns Venezuela into a proxy battleground. For Venezuelans, this is not just politics, it's daily survival amid shortages and fear. The threat of conflict is real, and families worry about safety and the future. Escalating rhetoric and military moves are not abstract, they're a direct threat to ordinary people. As leaders in Washington and Caracas weigh their next moves, the fate of 30 million Venezuelans hangs in the balance. The world watches, hoping for diplomacy, fearing the alternative. The question remains, can peace prevail, or is conflict inevitable? The next steps will shape not just Venezuela, but the region and the world. The stakes could not be higher. Tensions spiked with a dramatic encounter at sea. A U.S. Coast Guard cutter patrolling international waters was confronted by a Venezuelan Navy patrol boat. The Venezuelan crew demanded the Americans leave, claiming territorial violation. The U.S. commander refused, insisting they were in international waters. The Venezuelan vessel circled aggressively, escalating the standoff. No shots were fired, but the incident lasted nearly an hour before the Venezuelans withdrew. In Washington, officials condemned Venezuela's actions as reckless. Caracas, meanwhile, accused the U.S. of provocation and espionage, hailing their navy's defense of sovereignty. State media in Venezuela rallied nationalist sentiment, while U.S. officials warned of consequences. The diplomatic fallout was immediate. Each side accused the other of aggression. What could have been a minor maritime dispute became a symbol of deep hostility. The war of words intensified, pushing both nations closer to confrontation. The incident revealed just how quickly routine patrols can become international flashpoints. With both militaries on edge, the risk of escalation is higher than ever. The world took notice. This was no longer just a regional dispute. The standoff at sea became a turning point in the crisis. The question now, what comes next? The answer could shape the fate of the region. In Washington, military planners are preparing for every scenario. The U.S. has increased its naval presence in the Caribbean, signaling resolve. Options range from a naval blockade, cutting off Venezuela's supplies, to targeted airstrikes on military assets. More extreme plans, like a no-fly zone or even ground invasion, are discussed but seen as risky and unlikely. Any military move would be a major escalation, with unpredictable consequences. Publicly, U.S. leaders insist diplomacy is preferred, but all options are on the table. Behind the scenes, detailed planning continues. The message to Caracas: the U.S. is ready for any outcome. Regional partners are consulted, but there's caution about direct involvement. The Pentagon's preparations show just how seriously the threat of conflict is being taken. The hope is to deter further aggression, not start a war. But with tensions this high, the margin for error is razor thin. The groundwork for confrontation is being laid. Venezuela's crisis is a flashpoint in a global power struggle. Russia backs Maduro with military support. Seeing Venezuela as a strategic foothold near the U.S.-China's involvement is economic. Billions in loans tied to oil and a strong interest in stability. Both countries oppose U.S. intervention, complicating any American action. In Latin America, Colombia and Brazil support the U.S., worried about instability and refugees. Other nations urge restraint, wary of being drawn into conflict. Europe is divided. Some back U.S. calls for change, others fear military escalation. The UK and NATO allies condemn Maduro, but urge negotiation over force. The crisis exposes rifts among traditional allies and raises the risk of a wider confrontation. International actors are watching closely, each with their own interests at stake. The involvement of global powers means any escalation could have far-reaching consequences. The world stage is set for a high-stakes diplomatic test. The outcome in Venezuela could reshape alliances and the balance of power. The stakes extend far beyond Caracas. The next move could change the global order. The information war is as fierce as the military standoff. U.S. media highlights Venezuelan aggression, framing the crisis as a threat to international law and security. Venezuelan state media portrays the incident as heroic resistance to American imperialism. Each side uses media to rally support and demonize the other. International outlets reflect their own country's interests. Russian and Chinese networks amplify Venezuela's perspective, questioning U.S. motives. Social media is a battleground for disinformation, with bots and viral content shaping perceptions. The result: audiences worldwide see radically different versions of the same events. Independent journalism in Venezuela is stifled, making objective truth hard to find. The battle for hearts and minds is central to the conflict. Media narratives justify actions, build coalitions, and harden divisions. The information war makes peaceful resolution even harder. In this crisis, perception is as powerful as reality. The truth is often the first casualty. For leaders in Washington and Caracas, the crisis is personal and political. The U.S. president faces pressure to appear strong, especially among key voters. A tough stance on Venezuela can boost political standing, but a failed intervention could be disastrous. For Maduro, defiance is survival. Standing up to the U.S. rallies his base and secures military loyalty. Escalation distracts from domestic woes and justifies crackdowns. Years of animosity and failed diplomacy have left both sides deeply distrustful. Neither leader wants to appear weak or concede ground. Every move is calculated for political advantage, not just national interest. The risk decisions driven by ego and image, not the well-being of citizens. The pressure to not back down is immense on both sides. This personal rivalry makes compromise nearly impossible. The fate of millions hangs on the choices of a few. Beneath the geopolitics, Venezuela's humanitarian crisis deepens. U.S. sanctions have crippled the economy, especially the vital oil sector. Oil exports have plummeted and basic goods are scarce. A military conflict could disrupt global oil markets, spiking prices worldwide. For Venezuelans, the crisis is daily reality. Food, medicine, and power are in short supply. Millions have fled, creating a massive refugee crisis. Those who remain face hunger, blackouts, and collapsing healthcare. Aid is hard to deliver, and sanctions often hurt ordinary people more than leaders. The debate over sanctions continues. Are they a tool for change or a source of suffering? The risk war would turn disaster into catastrophe, cutting off aid and hope. The world struggles to help without empowering Maduro. The human cost grows as leaders trade threats. The crisis teeters on the edge of disaster. One mistake, a misread radar, a nervous trigger finger, could spark war. With global powers involved, escalation could spiral far beyond Venezuela. The Caribbean risks becoming a new arena for great power rivalry. Diplomats urge caution, but military preparations continue. For Venezuelans, the fear is real. War would deepen suffering and send more refugees fleeing. Neighboring countries brace for the fallout. Communication between Washington and Caracas is nearly non-existent. The future hangs on decisions made in the coming days. The hope is for restraint and a return to diplomacy, but with tensions this high, the risk of conflict grows by the hour. The world waits, hoping for peace, fearing the worst.